The knock on my door came at 7:45 in the morning. The kind of knock that doesn't ask permission, just announces trouble. I hadn't even slept yet. I'd dragged myself home around 4 after hauling old Mr. Henderson off a cold bathroom floor and making sure he didn't die alone on tile. 3 hours later, there I was, barefoot, half awake, already knowing this day wasn't going to be kind. I opened the door and found a woman standing there like she'd been printed straight out of a homeowners association brochure. Late 40s posture like a ruler, blonde hair pulled back so tight it probably hurt white puffer jacket cleaner than anything I owned. She held a clipboard the way cops hold flashlights, not for light but for authority. "Zachary Lawson," she asked, even though she obviously knew. "That's me," I said. "Can I help you?" "I'm Patricia Hutchkins, president of the Pinewood Ridge HOA. We need to discuss a violation." She didn't wait for permission, just walked in like my house was a crime scene she'd been assigned. Her eyes scanned everything. Couch, boots, radio on the counter. She wasn't looking at a home, she was collecting evidence. Then she dropped it on me. Noise violations. 15 of them. My snowmobile. Late nights, early mornings. Disturbing the peace. Section this, paragraph that. $250 per incident. Total due $3,750. I blinked at her, trying to wake up enough to understand how reality had derailed so badly. "Ma'am," I said, rubbing my face, "I use that machine to respond to emergencies. I'm the only paramedic up here. Roads get buried in snow. People call, I go." Didn't matter. Her lips barely moved when she said it, like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. The guidelines make no exception for personal activities. Personal. That word stuck in my teeth like gravel. I told her about the Martinelli kid choking on peanuts, Mrs. Chen clutching her chest, diabetic emergencies at 2 in the morning, snow so deep you could lose a truck in it. I told her people would die if I waited for plows. She shrugged. Then they should live somewhere with better access to services. That was the moment something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic, just a clean little break. Like ice under your boot. She left papers on my coffee table and walked out like she'd just handed me a parking ticket, not a moral crisis. And just like that, I had 30 days to pay or lose my house. I called my buddy Marcus, a sheriff's deputy down in Boulder. Figured he'd laugh and tell me this was insane. He didn't laugh. That was worse. HOA's got teeth, he said. Private contracts. You signed, you're bound. So that was it. Help people and get fined, or stop helping and live with that weight forever. No court had prepared me for that kind of math. That night, the radio cracked alive at 11:15, the way it always does, like a match in a dark room. Heart attack, snowed-in roads, 68-year-old man. I stood in my kitchen staring at the garage door, thinking about fines, liens, Patricia and her clipboard. Then I pictured a guy gasping for air while a clock quietly stole minutes from his life. That decision wasn't really a decision. I fired up the snowmobile. The engine tore through the silence like a chainsaw through velvet. Snow whipped sideways in the headlight beams. 6 minutes later, I was inside a stranger's bedroom watching a man sweat death through gray skin while his wife clutched his hand like she could anchor him to earth. Aspirin, oxygen, nitro, calm voice, fast hands. The rhythm you fall into when panic isn't allowed. We bought him time. That's all emergency medicine ever really is, buying time from the reaper and hoping someone smarter takes over before the tab comes due. 50 minutes later, the ambulance rolled in like sunrise. They took him. He lived. His wife grabbed my arm before I left and whispered, "Thank you," like it was sacred. I should have felt good. Instead, when I pulled into my driveway around 1:30, I saw headlights across the street. Patricia, sitting in her car, phone raised, recording me like I was wildlife. She didn't hide it either, just typed something slow and deliberate, then drove off. The next morning, the email came, photos attached, time-stamped, another $250 added. $4,000 now. And that's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about control. I tried playing nice. Letters, documentation, proof I was certified, letters from the county, ambulance service backing me up. I asked for a simple exemption, let me respond to emergencies, nothing else. Denied. Said it would set a precedent. Funny word, precedent. Sounds polite. Means nobody wants to be the first person to admit humanity should override paperwork. A couple nights later, a labor call came in. Young couple. Snowed-in road. First baby. I hesitated at the garage, really hesitated. I thought about fines stacking like bricks on my chest. So I took the truck. Worst drive of my life. Slipping tires, blind corners, 33 minutes of knowing every second might be costing a child its first breath. When I got there, the baby wasn't waiting. Life doesn't schedule itself around HOA policies. 20 minutes later, I was kneeling beside a bed, catching a screaming newborn in my hands while her father sobbed and laughed at the same time, that wild, cracked sound people make when terror flips into joy. We got them both out alive. I drove home shaking equal parts relief and anger. And then Patricia hit me with a new violation, running a home-based business. That's when something in me stopped trying to be reasonable. This wasn't bureaucracy anymore. This was a war fought with paperwork. Marcus got the county involved. That's when things escalated from neighborhood drama to real courtroom gravity. Lawyers, letters, legal language thick as concrete. Words like injunction and statutory conflict started floating around my life like storm clouds. The HOA doubled down, fines climbed, threats got sharper. They talked about liens foreclosure all over a snowmobile and a medical bag, and still the calls kept coming. You don't stop hearing those voices just because someone threatens your credit score. Then came the fall, elderly woman, head trauma, unconscious. I got there fast, stabilized her, called in a helicopter. She might have died if I'd waited. And when I stepped outside, there she was again, Patricia, sitting in the dark documenting. I walked up to her car, snow crunching under my boots. That woman could die, I told her. She didn't blink. Rules are rules. That's when I realized something ugly and simple. Some people would rather be right than be human. The court hearing came fast. Small courtroom, fluorescent lights, lawyers speaking in paragraphs. I told my stories. Heart attacks, babies, blood, time, fear. All the messy, unpolished truths that don't fit nicely into legal folders. Her lawyer talked about contracts, property values, order, structure, civilization apparently hanging by the thread of nighttime silence. Then Patricia testified, and that's when the twist nobody writes on purpose walked into the room. The county lawyer asked her a simple question: how many times had she needed emergency help? Twice, and both times it was me who showed up. You could feel the air shift, like a window cracked open in a sealed room. The judge didn't smile. Judges don't do that. But you could tell something had landed. We got a temporary win. No more fines while the case dragged forward. Not victory, just oxygen. Then everything changed. 3 weeks before trial, my radio lit up just after 2 a.m. Address sounded familiar. Too familiar. It was Patricia's house. I didn't hesitate. Didn't weigh karma. Didn't think about fines, threats, or humiliation. Training erases grudges. You hear distress, you move. That's it. 4 minutes later, I was inside her bedroom watching the woman who tried to ruin me fight for air like a drowning swimmer. Blue lips, panic eyes, oxygen saturation dropping fast. All the anger I'd carried for months just evaporated. Not forgiven, just irrelevant. Because in that moment, she wasn't my enemy. She was a patient. Oxygen, nebulizer, EP ready, calm voice, same rhythm as always. Slowly, the color came back to her face. The panic loosened its grip. Air started finding its way back into her lungs. Her husband cried. I pretended not to notice. When the ambulance took her away, she looked at me. Really looked, maybe for the first time. No clipboard. No rules. Just fear and something else behind it. The next morning, I got an email from the HOA lawyer. All fines dropped. Permanent exemption granted. Case withdrawn. No apology. Just legal surrender wrapped in polite formatting. But I knew what happened. Power folds fast when it finally meets reality. A couple days later, Patricia called me herself. Her voice sounded smaller, like it had been sanded down by something heavy. She apologized. Said she'd been wrong. Said nearly dying rearranges priorities in a way no meeting ever could. Said she was stepping down as president and pushing for a permanent rule change so nobody else would go through this again. And the strangest part, I believed her. Not because people magically transform overnight. They don't. But sometimes life cracks a window in a person just wide enough for truth to slip in. At the next HOA meeting, she resigned. The room was packed. People who'd avoided me suddenly couldn't stop looking. They voted in a new president, the guy whose heart attack I'd answered that winter. Then came the amendment. Simple, clean, permanent. Emergency responders get an exemption. No fines, no gray areas, ever again. It passed by a landslide. And just like that, the fight that nearly took my home turned into something bigger than me. Other mountain communities copied the rule. Lawyers called asking for the language. What started as one guy versus a clipboard turned into a ripple that might outlive all of us. Life settled after that. Snow kept falling. Radios kept crackling. Emergencies don't care about legal precedents. Months later, on another freezing night, I treated a little girl with a raging infection. Helicopter lifted her out under spinning blades and blue light. I stepped outside into the quiet afterward, that strange silence that follows chaos. And there she was again, Patricia. But this time she wasn't holding a phone. She handed me a thermos. Coffee, she said. Figured you'd be cold. That was it. No speeches, no drama, just hot coffee in the snow. And standing there with steam curling into the winter air, I realized something that took me a long time to learn. Most people don't change because they're convinced. They change because life finally forces them to feel what they refuse to understand. You can argue rules all day. Quote, bylaws. Threaten fines. But empathy. Empathy usually arrives wrapped in fear or pain or a moment where you realize you're not as untouchable as you thought. That whole mess taught me something I carry into every call now. Systems matter, laws matter, rules matter, but none of them are worth a damn if they forget the reason they exist in the first place. Because at the end of the night, after the sirens fade, after the snow settles, after the lawyers go home, what's left isn't policy. It's people. And people are fragile in ways paperwork will never understand. I still keep the radio on my nightstand. Still wake up to that crackling voice in the dark. Still fire up the snowmobile and ride into storms that most folks would never step into willingly. But now when I pull that throttle, I don't think about fines or fear or losing my home. I think about the simple truth that nearly cost this town everything. Sometimes the difference between life and death is just one person willing to show up. And sometimes the real danger isn't the snow or the distance or the darkness. It's what happens when we let rules matter more than each other. So here's the thing I still wrestle with even now. If it took someone almost dying to make things right, how many times has that lesson gone unlearned somewhere else? Because I've seen both sides now, the clipboard and the crash cart. And I still wonder, where do we draw the line between order and compassion? Between rules and mercy? Between being right and doing what's right? I'd really like to hear what you think, because sooner or later, all of us end up standing on one side of that line.